It's something. We're trying to get along in this world of high tech. I just wanted to say good morning to old friends and new friends who are gathered here, and to say how happy I am that we're together. It's a blessing to be together in these very tumultuous times, and so may we find support for one another, and even though we're in a virtual reality, and deepen our practice. So I think we should start, Raylan, with the refuges. And let me just say briefly about the refuges. It's so easy to say these automatically and not really focus on their meaning. And I love to remember that when we take refuge in the Buddha, there's of course the historical figure, but it's really, we're taking refuge in our potential for awakening as he did. And to me, that's a good thing to remind ourselves about. And secondly, that the Dharma is this sacred path that we're all on. It's a sacred path. And then finally, the Sangha, the spiritual community, which we are, and which is our teachers and all those practicing with us. So with that little introduction, let's, can you put up the screen? Okay. Let's chant it once in Tibetan and once in English. Sangye chodong tokji tok nom la Changchu bardu daki sabsuchi Dakji sinsok pe sanom chi Drola penchir sangje druparshuk. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we go for refuge until enlightened. By the power of generosity and the other perfections, may we realize Buddhahood for the benefit of all. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we go for refuge until enlightened. By the power of generosity and the other perfections, may we realize Buddhahood for the benefit of all. Thank you. So just briefly, a quick overview of the morning. We'll have a meditation now with some guidance, and then I'll give a talk, and we'll have a short break. And then when we come back together, it's our time for reflection, comments, questions, or whatever. So listen to the sound of the gong. And I want to say there's a beautiful metaphor about this, which is sound is form. And as the sound gradually begins to dissolve and dissipate, it becomes formless. And it's a metaphor for meditation, that we move from the form of thoughts that arise into the formless moments. So So begin by inviting awareness to drop into the body. Becoming aware of simply sitting, and perhaps taking 3 or 4 slower, deeper breaths to help bring awareness home to the body. Allowing the body to deeply relax, to let go and relax. Aware of groundedness in the lower half of the body, and a sense of uplift in the upper part of the body, straight spine, soft shoulders. A softening of all the muscles in the face, particularly around the eyes, whether they're closed or partly open. Feel as though they're soft and wide. So you may be noticing the movement of the breath in the body. It's a gentle kind of focus. And then letting your awareness, the field of your awareness, be very open to whatever may be arising from moment to moment. If the mind is taking its time to quiet down, that's all right. But just let the awareness drop again into your body. Come home to the body, to the heart. If the mind is wandering, come back, come home again. Let the awareness be very open and bright, like the sky, spacious, vast. very present, very aware from moment to moment, each precious moment. And if there's distraction, let go with the out breath. Just quietly let it go. and just be with the calming rhythm of the breath. For a few more moments, be with the continuity of awareness, the continuity of loving awareness. And now open to the sound of the gong. So welcome once again, if any of you came on later. And if you need to wiggle around for a moment before I start talking, I want to turn to share with you these reflections that I've been engaged in, thinking about this topic. It's just a moment here. So, yes. Cultivating a fearless heart in an uncertain world. I've really been thinking about this because the last few weeks have felt tumultuous, precipitous. I can't find enough adjectives. And this title really just came to me. This is what we need to talk about. So I think everyone would probably agree with this, that we're living in extraordinary times, and they're almost alarming at times. Just if we stop to think about the climate crisis, the fires in California, the political situation of what's coming out of Washington, the wars, oh my God, the wars, the violence that seems to be erupting everywhere unexpectedly. And so, of course, this uncertainty, it becomes part of the collective unconscious, and it can't help but be having its impact on us. And so I see our emphasis today in being together as finding inspiration for our practice and just beginning to look at ways we can cultivate the resilience that we need to be living through these times. So, of course, times of crisis are always also, as the famous pictogram shows, times of opportunity. And so let's see how this is also inspiring us along the path to awakening. So this talk is kind of a kaleidoscope of stories and teachings and images. And I want to start with an image that may be familiar to many of you. It's the image of Indra's net, which comes from the Mahayana tradition. And it's a metaphor, and a very powerful one, that illustrates the principle of interdependence, how everything, everybody is interconnected in this vast web. And you can imagine this infinite web of, it's called a luminous web, because where the threads intersect, all the ley lines, as I call them, there's a node of light. There's a diamond-like light. Each of us is one of those points of light. And so there's this vast network that represents all sentient beings, each light reflecting the others. And then part of this image is that whenever suffering occurs, it creates a tear in that net. And just think about what is tearing into that net right now, war and fire and so forth. And yet the response, people's response, is hopefully compassion. And through our compassion, we begin to reweave the net. So this is a really beautiful image of the interplay between suffering and compassion. And even though it's metaphorical, it's an image, it seems to me somewhat comforting to know that each of us holds a compassionate piece of this picture, and we do our best to heal our own worlds, and that in turn affects, well, this also relates to the quantum of contemporary physics. That view is very similar, and isn't that wondrous that contemporary physics comes up with its own version of Indra's net? That's mind-blowing to me, anyway. So, yes, there are many tears in this net right now. And it reminds me of a story that I find very inspiring. It's about His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And apparently, I wasn't present for this, but a friend described it, that he was giving these very advanced teachings about compassion. And he was talking about Manjushri, who's the archetype of wisdom in the Tibetan tradition. And he was talking about how our hearts open with compassion, and that this compassion has a kind of radiance about it. But then he suddenly interrupted himself, and he stopped, and he said, "But that's not the way things are. We're just people groping in the dark. We're just people groping in the dark." And he put his head down and he wept openly. He wept. He wept. But then he sat up and he blew his nose and he went right on with the teachings. Well, this story just embedded itself in my heart because it shows, of course, and we know his deep, deep humanness, that he too suffers as we do with the harsh realities of life, of the world, and that part of what we suffer with is the discrepancy between our ideals or our hopes and the realities. And here he is this extraordinary being, he too goes through what we go through. So as I was thinking about this, it reminded me of another great teacher who some of you may not have heard of. He's in the Vipassana tradition. He was Cambodian, and his name was Ajahn Chah. And he was in the he was Thai, from Thailand. He was in the Thai forest monk tradition. And he was a teacher to some of those teachers that you may know about, like Jack Kornfield and Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, the people who kind of brought that tradition into the West. So often, as so often happens, people take their really big questions to the master. And apparently, invariably, when somebody was in front of him having asked some soul-searching question, he would laugh and he would simply reply, "It's uncertain, isn't it? It's uncertain, isn't it?" So someone may ask, what should I do with my life? And he would reply, "It's uncertain, isn't it?" Or they would say, how can I become enlightened? And he would say, "It's uncertain, isn't it?" Or they might challenge him and say, "Aren't you supposed to be enlightened?" And he would say, "It's uncertain, isn't it?" Well, this is another great story because this is showing us the wisdom of insecurity. The wisdom of insecurity. I think that may be the title of a book. Sort of sounds familiar to me. But the question is, how do we become comfortable, if you will, or accepting of uncertainty, of not knowing, of being in this place that sometimes feels like free fall? It feels like we're falling and there's no place to land. And so it may seem counterintuitive to call upon the wisdom of uncertainty or insecurity, but it actually is a very deep place of being within us. So the question is, how are we dealing with it? How are we dealing with uncertainty? And I'm always looking for inspiration. I'm always looking for inspiration in the teachings, in books and talks. It's like they're my lifeline. They're our lifeline to getting through this very challenging life that we're leading. So I remembered a book that I hadn't read. I read it probably 40 years ago. And it was titled An Interrupted Life, The Diaries of Etty Hillesum. And I just want to share a little bit from this because how she dealt with unimaginable suffering and the prospect of imminent death. Because let me tell you who she was. And I think the reason this came up was because Tuesday, just a few days ago, was the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the concentration camps in Germany after World War II. So Etty Hillesum was a Dutch woman in her late 20s. She was Jewish and living in Holland. And the Germans, of course, had invaded, and the reign of terror came into her country, too. And the atrocities against the Jews and the Gypsies and others began. And she ended up in a concentration camp with her family. And then they were all transported, would transport this terrible word, to Auschwitz. And her parents, her brothers, and she were all killed in the gas chambers. But in this period of a couple of years leading up to that terrible ending, she was keeping a diary. And somehow she was able to smuggle that diary out before they were shipped to Auschwitz. And what is so inspiring is how she dealt with the horrors of that time. She was constantly trying to find meaning amidst suffering. How do you find meaning in the midst of suffering? And her form of mysticism was not about solitary contemplation, but about total engagement with the world in which she found herself within this concentration camp. And she was called to always be trying to help others, trying to cheer them on, trying to offer her steadiness and her caring presence to other people. And so her response to uncertainty and to fear was to cultivate a passionate inner life. And she poured that into her diary, and that's what we're being called to do. It seems to me the most important response in this time is to strengthen our inner life, our practice life. So I just want to share a couple of excerpts from you. Listen to this. Somewhere there is something inside me that will never desert me again. Isn't that an example of inner refuge? Our own practice. So inspiring. Listen to this. You must be able to bear your sorrow, even if it seems to crush you. You will be able to stand up again, for human beings are so strong. Your sorrow must become an integral part of yourself, part of your body and your soul. Give your sorrow all the space and shelter in yourself that it needs. And if everyone bears her grief honestly and courageously, the sorrow that fills the world will abate. I just find this so extraordinary. If you can imagine her circumstances, just one more excerpt. She writes, I can bear a little more than I was able to bear yesterday. That probably explains my cheerfulness and inner peace. Even the moments of deepest sadness and black despair finally make me stronger. And through suffering, I have learned that we must share our love with the whole of creation. But the price is high in blood and tears, but all the suffering is worth it. And then apparently the last words in the diary were, we should be willing to act as a balm for all wounds. We should be willing to act as a balm for all wounds. So it seems to me there are two key messages here. Really, to share our love and our kindness however we can in our worlds. It doesn't matter where we live, what we're doing. It's even just living with that intention in our mind and heart. And then the second one really is that, and it links to the story about His Holiness, that our vulnerability opens the heart of compassion and connects us with others. We're not alone. You know, our being together this morning is a reminder we're not alone. And it gives us the courage to live with the unknown. All right, I want to make a transition here to start looking at fear and how to cultivate fearlessness. So, fear, it's the most primordial of all our feelings. And like any klesha or obstacle, it can be a doorway. It's a challenging one, but it can be a doorway. And so this doorway, one hopes, can lead to courage, to acceptance, even eventually to equanimity. And so our practice invites us to meet our fear head on. Not easy, not easy. But we bring attention and just see where you are as you hear me talking about this. Do you notice any tightening or resistance in the body? Or perhaps you remember times when the fear was so powerful, it rose like fire in the body. You know, I just remember that in my 20s, I had panic attacks. And I remember feeling when those came that I was going into meltdown. It was like they completely took over. And so, of course, our impulse is the fight or flight response. Our impulse is to shut down or pull away or suppress. But that just amplifies the fear. So let me just share with you what I see as a kind of four-step process that we can use to deal with fear. And of course, working with our fear leads to fearlessness. So it's a calling. And I think if you don't relate to the word fear, but maybe you relate to the word anxiety or maybe worry, they're kind of all in the same department. So, well, let me start here. That fear starts with a thought, starts in the mind. It may be unconscious. And they are these vague stirrings. They may be feelings of dread. It may be waking up in the night with a dream. But fear becomes energy in the body. And it may seem counterintuitive to open to it. But the first step, so this is number one, is to recognize it, and even perhaps to name it. There's a practice in Vipassana which is of naming mind states or feeling states. So you might name it fear, usually saying it twice. And the reason for this is that the moment that you recognize it and name it, you've started to create a little space around it. You've started, maybe very subtly, the process of disidentifying from it. So the second point is, because we experience fear as energy in the body, go to the breath. It's our greatest ally. Deepen your breaths. Deepen your breath slow and steady, and understand that our out breath is actually the part of the breath that quiets the autonomic nervous system. It's that which is in overdrive. So if you deepen your breath, deep, slow breathing, it really begins to help. So that's as long as we don't resist, because what happens with the breath, of course, is that the feelings just begin to soften. They begin to dissipate. So the third step is to bring insight into this, investigate it. So what is the fear asking me to pay attention to? And you might say, that's overwhelming. I can't look at all these places of fear in our world today and how they're impacting me. But maybe there's something habitual about the way you respond to fear. You know, what might that be? Or maybe you begin to notice the stories that you're telling yourself. You may be hearing the same stories. Can I handle this? Am I going to be overwhelmed by this? Am I ever going to be free from this? You know, in comes the judgment, in comes that sort of inner battle, that inner war. But if we can begin to drop the storyline that is perpetuating these feelings, that's part of the process too. So here's the fourth one. If I can remember, I'll try to go through the four quickly to remind us, but this is a key one. Can you expand your field of awareness? to include everyone who experiences fear. This is really key. Can you start breathing with them? Can you breathe with the people who are in war zones? This is very like Tonglen practice. Can you breathe with the people who are in war zones or in places of flood or fire or whatever? And you see, as you breathe with them, this becomes part of a kindness practice. It becomes part of metta, loving kindness. And so you can use those phrases, or you can find your own phrases. May I be free from fear. May all beings be free from fear. Or perhaps, may I have courage and inner strength. May all beings have courage and inner strength. And you see, as we sense our connection with others who are experiencing fear, there's reassurance in that. Because what we're doing is we're opening the lens of self-absorption to being aware of the other, to include others. It's like opening the lens in a camera from this tight place of self-concern and opening. We're all dealing with this. We're all dealing with this. So just very briefly to review the 4 steps. There's recognition, naming, is going to the breath, that's 3rd. And then there's investigating, asking questions of it, exploring it. And then finally, expanding our field of awareness. So just to maybe wind up this particular section, obviously, as we work with fear, we're cultivating fearlessness. We're cultivating courage. It's the courage to face what is difficult. It's the courage to open, to accept, and to find inner strength. Because as Eddie Hillesum says, it's there. She found it in the midst of a concentration camp. She found it. We can find it. And we find it, and then we wobble, and then it's back again. And then we need to bring compassion to ourselves. But this is really the gift. It's the gift of our inner work. It's every time we sit for meditation, and we go through such a variety of experiences, don't we? Sometimes quiet meditations, sometimes turbulent meditations, and the very fact of sitting with openness and acceptance and compassion towards our own inner process, that's part of cultivating our fearlessness. We're staying steady with ourselves. Isn't it amazing that we do this? But it's the answer. It's the inner life. In the same way that Eddie Hillesum poured her feelings into this diary, we open to whatever the process of meditation is showing us. So listen to these words. This is Nelson Mandela. Another person, who was it? What was it? I think 27 years in the prisons of South Africa. 27 years. And yet, here's what he said. I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Again. I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Those words, this is from somebody who we can't imagine what he had gone through, but this is what he came to. And then he becomes a world figure for peace in that tortured country. So then another inspiring quote came up for me, and this one came from one of my teachers, and I'm sure probably a teacher for many of you too, Thich Nhat Hanh. So Thai, as he was affectionately called, was a Vietnamese Zen master, world famous, extraordinary teacher. And this story goes back to in his earlier days when he was living in a monastery and the Vietnam War was raging around them. And those monks, they didn't stay in the monastery. They went out into the war zones to collect the wounded and the dead and to bring them back and to find help for them. And so imagine they were going into war zones. Bombs were falling. Landmines could explode. Enemy fire. They were right in the middle of it all. Yet this was their compassionate response. This is how they at that time were helping to mend Indra's net, to come back to that image again. And so here's what he said, referring to that time. He said, "Fearless is not only possible, it is the ultimate joy. When you touch non-fear, you are free." Let's just look at that for a moment together. He's saying, fearless, as he's telling us, well, sometimes we need to be reminded that fearlessness is possible. And then he calls it the ultimate joy because, and you could say, why is that? Well, because when we're in the clutches of fear, we're in a place of tremendous stress and suffering. And obviously, when we're free of that, that's a joy. That's that simple. So when you touch non-fear, he says, you are free. So let's bring this into our own hearts, take it out of the realm of story and bring it home. Bring it home to the heart, because the heart center, it's in the system of chakras in the subtle body. It's our deepest source. It's the deepest source of our loving. And so here are two ways that we can cultivate fearlessness. I invite you to close your eyes and see if an image arises for you for fearlessness. Just turn within, let your awareness drop into your heart center, and just open and see if any image for fearlessness arises. Just be open, receptive. It's all right if nothing seems to happen. Just be patient. Maybe you remember someone you know who's fearless. Or maybe there's been a time when you yourself have been tremendously courageous and fearless. You might even remember some animal that's fearless. Just see what happens, what comes up. And it could be the image even speaks to you in some way. It reminds me of that great aria from the Elijah, "Be not afraid." A great aria, "Be not afraid. That could be a mantra. Be not afraid. So with your eyes still closed, here's an invitation to put your hand to your heart center. Breathe in courage on your in-breath. Breathe in courage on the in-breath. Experience courage in your body. You might sit up straighter. Feel the strength in your back. Experience courage in your own body. And you know, the origin of this word courage comes from the French word cœur, which means heart. So as you breathe in and out, we're cultivating the heart of courage. We're cultivating the heart of courage. We can do this anytime. We can find the phrases that work for us, like let go or be not afraid. Trusting this deepest source, this loving source within us. Now, as you bring your attention back slowly, listen to these words of Mary Oliver. She says, keep room in your heart for the unimaginable. Keep room in your heart for the unimaginable. The words of the poet. And so we're being asked to live with the unimaginable now. I don't need to repeat the litany. I don't need to remind us. It's in the news every day. To cultivate fearlessness, you may occasionally need to take a news fast because we're being bombarded. And so this is the doorway to opportunity to work with our fear and to cultivate fearlessness, to cultivate courage. So I think above all, I want to say what may be obvious, and it's that here we go, we take refuge whenever we start to practice, and we need to be cultivating those refuges with a kind of renewed passion. And I want to say that, we take refuge in these three outer things, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But there's also what we might call the innermost refuge. And the innermost refuge is the heart center, this deepest center, the essence of our being, which can hold anything. The heart, and this is really what Mary Oliver's words are saying, the heart can hold our distress, our fear, our anxiety, our doubts. It can even hold death. This is the power of the heart. And we need to trust this. Oh, we need to trust this. So this means our practice, our daily meditation, our living with awareness through our daily lives, living with loving awareness moment to moment becomes our practice. So I want to end with a poem. And I'm going to read it twice because I think we need to, oh my goodness, I should have given this to you, Raylan, to put in the chat. I'll do this in the break I'll send it to you, and then maybe you can put it in the chat. So here's the poem. It's just 5 lines long. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of our world. All things break, and all things can be mended. Not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go. Love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. Wow, those words move me so much. So again, I want to make a reference back to Indra's net, because the word brokenness appears in the first line. But he says all things can be mended. Through our practice, through our compassion, we begin to mend the brokenness in the net. And then he calls to love. Let me just say the poem again. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended. Not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go. Love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for letting me share my reflections on this subject, because we're all in this together, and we're all being called to mend the brokenness in the net together. So let's have a short break. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes is okay. So come back, and then we'll turn to reflections together, your comments, what touched you, and so on. And it'll be that time for us to be together. Okay, and Raylan, I'm going to send this to you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Olivia.
Let's see. Oh, we're back. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to close. Oh, there we are. Close the chat. Um, oh, please, I want to thank you, Raylan. When I went to the chat and I saw you'd put all these things into it, that was wonderful because I'm when I listen to a talk, I'm always trying to write things down, and there it is. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Um, so uh, this is your time. It's like, tell me any responses, comments, questions, and as Raylan said, you can go down to the bottom here to where it says react and raise your hand, or even just do this, and Raylan will call on you. So, and for example, when we did that exercise toward the end about looking for images for fearlessness, uh, really interesting to hear what came up for you if you want to share it. I think there's a lot of wisdom when we come together in this way.
Catherine? Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, well, the first thing that came up is I have a statue of Kuan Yin, and I love her expression. She's very, it just feels like everlasting love coming through her.
Okay, I'm with you now. Sorry.
And the second thing that came up when you mentioned pets was my dog. I have a little Chihuahua, and she's just always eager to love and make connection and forgive and repair, and she's really inspirational to me.
That's wonderful. Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think that's why it can be helpful to kind of call on images like this because they carry a lot of energy for us. So thank you for that one.
I have one quick announcement, and then I will pass it over to Judith. I just wanted to give a brief talk about dana. So dana in Pali and Sanskrit, it means generosity. It's a way of also expressing gratitude, which all of you are doing with your presence here today. And thank you. Another way of expressing gratitude or practicing dana is through offering a financial gift. And if you're able to do so and you feel moved by Olivia's offering today, I'll put the links in the chat. One way is to go to naturaldharma.org/donate. And if you go into the events section, you can make a dana for Olivia towards her. If you want to make a general donation, then you can go to naturaldharma.org/mandala to make a general offering or contribution. And the other thing I wanted to speak about in relation to generosity is we're having like a generosity celebration for all that you've contributed towards manifesting our mandala. That's on February 16th, right after Dharma Sunday. So it's from 12:15 to 1:15. And during that hour, we're going to have all the lamas and directors kind of express their gratitude, but also share their visioning and express their gratitude for all that you've contributed in your open-hearted giving. So thank you so much. I'll put all that information in the chat, and I'm going to hand it over to Judith for your question. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Much appreciation for all of that you offer, Olivia, over many, many years. Two images came so quickly to mind that I just was kind of wanting to share. And when you asked for that, I was kind of just put my hand up. The first is that this big lion came and facing the lion. And I realized that this image is my horoscope. I'm a Leo. And I I then took it to mean that this was a image of courage. So I took the lion inside of me and kind of instead of facing the lion, I became the lion. And I recognize that there is in my heart a deep sense of courage that I hadn't really realized before, just in that moment. And the other was a completely different thing of walking with Thich Nhat Hanh in Plum Village years ago, and walking for peace. And we were in the sunflower fields. And as many of you who have practiced with him or kind of imbibed him in any way, I was just always so like unimaginably astonished that this man could hold sway over so many people of bringing peace after his, kind of coming into this life, in this war and being shunted out of his country after all he did. And I don't know, there was something that just stays with me. So I was really grateful to have that image come up in relation to fearlessness. So thanks.
It's lovely to see you, by the way. We do go way back with each other. Thank you for both of those because actually, when I found myself saying, or it might be an animal, I was thinking of a lion because the lion is the one creature in the jungle, so to speak, that is fearless. There are no predators. So it's a powerful image. And then for me, Thich Nhat Hanh has been an incredible inspiration. Just the way he walks is such a teaching. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful. It looks like Sharon, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. Hello. Sorry about no video 'cause I'm not dressed. I'm in the midst of a whole fearfulness around my son and his family being evacuated from the fires in the Pacific Palisades. And I've been very much involved on a daily basis, FaceTiming with them. And so anyways, that's my background for right now. But I want to share a great joy when you said, remembering fearlessness. It was during the blizzard of 1978 in Boston. I was in an event in Harvard Square, some sort of spiritual practice, and unaware of what was going on outside. And unbeknownst to me, I was on the last Green Line train to make it to home. And I was living in Wellesley at the time, and the train stop was about a half a mile from my house. I was supposed to be picked up by my then boyfriend and son, but they didn't show up. They couldn't make it. So I decided to walk the half a mile home, and I was walking down the middle of Route 9. There were no other cars on Route 9. I was very fearful. Could I take the next step? It was very deep. It was up to my knees, even in the middle of the highway. And then I remembered living in a monastery the summer before. During the session, I knew I could always take the next breath. So then I suddenly became aware I can always take the next step. And then suddenly everything opened up, and I just experienced such joy and felt connected to the universe by the snow that was falling on me. I was just so euphoric. Um, and, but then an ambulance came along and offered me a ride home. I almost didn't take it because I was so full of joy being where I was, But I did take the ride and found out that my son and boyfriend were unable to clear the driveway enough to come pick me up. So I remember that moment so many times during my life, and so that's my share. But I also want to add, Olivia, that I am so grateful to you. I took my very first personal growth class with you in the greenhouse in Cambridge in 1975. And you were mentoring Maury Schwartz, the co-leaders, and that was a turning point for me. And I've connected with you periodically, just via vehicles like this. And while we were meditating, I'm been so distraught. My meditation was really messy today, but one of my thoughts was I want to start a gratitude list, and you're going to be on it. So
Karen, I'm so touched by your story because you're talking about the very joy that was in that quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, that feeleth
yeah.
what not fear, there's joy. And your story is very compelling. And I just wrote this going back to Maury was what is the word? Mentoring me, but that's a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia.
No, is that Carolyn? Do you want to unmute?
Hi, I have so much to say to you, but I'm going to keep this short so other people can say something. Uh, uh, I'm not a person who puts herself out there very much. I haven't had much opportunity to help other people, or I haven't created the opportunities. And I always admire activists and but feel scared. I'm scared to put myself out there and feel like I have nothing to offer. So while we were thinking about fearlessness, I sat here and thought, what would be an image of fearlessness? And I'm sitting in our third floor of our house, which is, I use it for yoga and for meditation, but the kids are gone and we don't use this room with beds and comfortable carpet. And I had an image of myself opening my house up to refugees. And yesterday, I went next door to some guys that were roofing a house, and they were clearly, they were speaking Spanish, pretty, not even dressed properly for the cold, but they're roofing this house and they had a van, and I wanted to ask them about something that my son-in-law needed. And I looked in the van and there was this women and children just huddled there. It was a very, very cold day. And clearly people are very, very scared right now around us. And I was so moved by that these women, are, in my mind, they're coming with their husbands because, or their boyfriends or their brothers or whatever, because the environment has become very unsafe. And if it was today, I would offer these people a safe place to stay here in my big house, and which would be a courageous thing for me to do, given my history. And I feel like it's something that I need to do.
Your vulnerability around that, and that we never know when the turning point is going to come. It sounds like it may have come for you yesterday with seeing those women and children shivering in that van. And we need to trust our heart. We need to trust that we'll have the courage to go forward with some idea. And so I want to encourage you and say, go for it.
Okay, thank you. I will.
Can take small steps first of all. It's everything we do is helping in this vast net that we were talking about. So
Yes,
thank okay.
yes, thank you.
All right. Um, Anybody else or any
Trish, like Trish.
Trish, yeah.
Hi, I just want to thank you so much for offering this. It's been wonderful. Really tapped into something well beyond what I was conscious of and what I was really aware of. So I'm grateful for that. And the inspiration on so many levels that we are so much more than our thoughts and this deep, deep bed of, of courage that we have, that we can use.
Yeah, it's
We
really
can feed it. We can feed it just like we feed everything else. That's the part that needs more attention. And so that little practice that we did together was so wonderful, like so simple, so directly to the heart.
you mean the practice that we did, putting your hand on your heart and breathing.
Yes. Yeah. And the invitation to, breathe it in and see what emerges and how to encourage a little flourishment of that and be open to different ways that courage can present itself.
Thank you so much. Isn't it marvelous when we ask for something like that, like an image or whatever, that it comes and that it's such a simple thing, putting your hand on your heart. And yet these simple things are often the most powerful and profound ones, so that's something that I do. So I shared it and I'm so glad it touched you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you so much, and everyone here for all of your courage to show up too.
Yes. I know. Thank you for showing up. We all have such busy lives and um okay. I see Ashley.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to add a little maybe broadening of talking about fearlessness. Like thinking about an image, I actually was starting to think about the ways that fearlessness is embedded in impunity culture and how it actually is fostered in structures of non accountability, and especially, in the political realm of what we're all experiencing right now. Um, and that fundamentally, I really don't think that you can associate fearlessness with a moral stance in that your fears.
Can you say that again? I missed it.
I don't think we can assume that when you attain fearlessness that you have a right view either, right? I
Uh-huh.
think that there's kind of this underlying tone here that we're all politically aligned and that we're seeing horrible things and we want to alleviate suffering, but that can manifest very differently on your position in our society and your privilege. So I really feel like we need to start thinking about action as, where is the role of action within this? Because, you know, we need to act very urgently. That's
Well,
all.
the, where are we going to be called to act is a very important question. I'm glad you raised it because uh, I think I'm just aware amongst people that I know, it's like we're waiting. Where do we step in here to act? And I trust that we'll know the right thing will come to us that, oh, I need to help here. I need to do this. And so I'm really glad you connected this into the world of action because uh, again, it makes me go back to Etty Hillesum and the fact that she gave herself so fully to trying to help others in these horrible camps. And that was how she was called to action. And it'll be different for all of us. And I think if we listen deeply, again, back to the heart center, we'll know. will know. Yeah, so thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing that perspective. It's very helpful. Yeah. Bye. See, Susan, you want to unmute.
Hi, Olivia, thank you so much. You touched on so many things that are so important, and that really resonated with my struggles, and as a person with heart disease who depends on their heart mind, for wisdom and knowledge, and yet my heart goes into arrhythmias and high blood pressure and stuff in the middle of the night. I didn't even know if I could be here this morning, and thank God I could. And this was just so helpful. And what I noticed a lot is people, even though there's a cruelty among the people who are running the country, harming, creating suffering, creating chaos, I realized that one of the very few things I can do personally is continue to act with kindness, in very small ways in my day-to-day life with anyone I interact with, whether I know them or not, just it's almost like resistance, to the cruelty. That's like my political stance, is kindness. And part of that is with myself too, because I feel like I'm very self-critical that, I'm not more along the path than I am. And at 80, I can't remember how old I am, at 72, like I should be further or whatever, but just that idea of resistance through a simple thing like kindness.
Oh, Susan, that's so beautiful. And I want to say two things. One is that when I refer to the heart center, I'm referring not to the physical heart.
Yeah.
Heart's more off to the side here, but you know but this is the heart center that's in the subtle body. And
Yeah.
so they're different. But I
Yeah.
need blessings for your heart situation too, for both of them.
Thank you.
But this is beautiful what you've shared, and it's something we all can take on as a practice if we don't already have it. That well, I'm thinking about the words of the Dalai Lama because he says, "My religion is kindness." And so these little moments, and you see, there my mind jumps into, we are part of the quantum of Indra's net, and so every action that we take is having its subtle effect. We may not see this, but I trust it's this way. And so for each of us to be following your practice, this is beautiful. And so that's a really wonderful gift you've brought to us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's great. Okay, I don't know if there's anybody else. Any last minute thoughts?
Looks like Jennifer.
Yes, there's this acronym that came up for me when you were sharing about fear, and it's false equivalence appearing real. So I often use that if fear arises within my mind, and so I investigate it with that acronym.
Jennifer, thank you. Could you say it once more?
False equivalence appearing real.
Ah, false appearances appearing real. Yes, this is very subtle. Yeah, because we seize onto the reality of things and it's an appearance. Yeah, it's it's a lot to think about. It reminds me of Sophie Rinpoche. I haven't got a very good memory for things like this, but he talks about that, a dance between appearance and reality. So thank you for bringing in that very thoughtful perspective. Okay. Thank you. Just maybe where we are, that Rayan, perhaps it's Unless there's somebody else who has a comment before we sign off, I think we should turn to the dedication, and that will appear on your screen. Let's just repeat the lines in English. May the pure, brilliant sun of Bodhi dawn in each and every heart, dispelling the darkness of suffering and confusion unstoppably until all are fully illumined and awakened. Thank you all. Thank you all for your presence, for your practice, and for whatever ways we may take some of the thoughts of today into our lives. So goodbye for now, and many blessings.